Steinhoff Africa Retail announced yesterday it's changing its name. It's going back to its roots, renaming itself Pepkor. Star indicated that it may join the long list of claimants suing Steinhoff Holdings in order to recoup some 500 million rand that were set aside for executives who were set to lose bonuses that were tied to the Steinhoff share price. Steinhoff's share price has plunged more than 90% since the company admitted to accounting irregularities in December last year. In its interim earnings for the 6 months ended March announced yesterday, the company reported that headline earnings per share dropped by 49% to 36.2 cents. The 500 million rand executive cash pool were part of the reasons why earnings fell. The Star share price recovered from an early afternoon low of 15.26 to close at 16.53, just 2.19% down on the day. Pepkor Chairman Jayendra Naidoo joins me in studio now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Before we get into
Thank you very much, Nzinga.
Before we get into the numbers of the results announced yesterday, how sure can people be that these results are not tainted by the same, what people call accounting irregularities, but fraud, as the Steinhoff results?
Firstly, before I respond to that, I see that I'm called Pepkor Chairman, and although we decided to change the name, it still has to go through a due process. So I think the next time I come here, I will be properly Pepkor Chairman, but today I'm still the Chairman of Star. The Steinhoff accounting irregularities, which we are still waiting for a full report from Steinhoff's auditors, PwC, is huge, obviously affects years of their activity, but Star is a standalone company separately listed on the Joburg Stock Exchange, and we were concerned as soon as the news broke in December about exactly this point. We've done our best to dig through all aspects of Star's functioning and all Star's underlying companies. We think we've got to the full picture. We discovered a lot of co-guarantees that we had signed up to, where we were liable for certain Steinhoff debts. All of this has now been cleansed with the recent refinancing of Steinhoff facilities. So to the best of our knowledge, Star is clean. Our audits have been passed, they've been robustly interrogated, and we've come through all of this in the last 6 months.
Talk to us about this refinancing. Star raised 18 billion rand last week. How easy or difficult was it to do this in that environment?
Very difficult. And the banks obviously have exactly the same questions as well, to be sure that there's no other risks, no other liabilities. We've taken some obligations in terms of the covenants and the ratios that the bank wants us to commit to in terms of our assets, in terms of the interest, our ability to repay. All of this is very detailed. And 18 billion is a big deal. It was done in several instruments. There's several banks, 6 financial institutions. So if you try and get a loan from one bank, it's tough. 6 is tougher, and they have lots of competing interests between them, which has to be carefully managed. We had RMB as our advisor and arranger. So we are very pleased that this has been done, and it's been done at a comparable cost. Although the loans that we had from Steinhoff was not costing us more, it was much better for Star's access to future facilities, to have its own independent banking relationships, and also to separate out Star's financial affairs from that of Steinhoff.
Have you completely cut ties, or are there still lots of connections that need to be?
Apart from the fact that Steinhoff is now a shareholder and the largest shareholder in Star, from a day-to-day level, there's no dependencies between Star and Steinhoff. That's what led us to decide that now was the time to change the name and revert back to the name Pepkor, which was the name of the major businesses, which is Pep and Ackermans, which takes up most of the company's revenue and profits.
Let's go to these results that came out yesterday, reporting growth for revenue from 29.96 billion rand to 33 billion rand. That's a 10.2% increase, and growth in operating profit to 3.29 billion rand. What factors led to this?
Yeah, so in the accounts, we have to also take some extraordinary matters, which are once-off. For example, the 500 million rand write-down that we've provided for, which is against this entity that management had shares in, and which in turn held shares in Steinhoff. There were some other matters we had to take this year, which could have come next year, which was certain provisions for employee incentives, management incentives primarily. That knocked 590 off our numbers. But the operating profit of the company on a normalized basis, a comparable basis as it was presented, is actually an 18% operating profit, much higher than the 2.9 that is reflected there. But it's been a difficult 6 months. And it's a 6 months where a new business with a new management team and new board, effectively only constituted last September, got the shock of its life in December, and discovered that we were tied to Steinhoff, and Steinhoff was in deep trouble. So we had to find our way, and a lot of time was taken. Instead of selling, baby wear, adult wear, and all the good things that the Star's companies sell, we had to focus on corporate stuff. Is the accounts in order? Are the financial affairs properly done? Are we going to lose management, etc., etc.? A whole shopping list of issues, which I think the performance, you'd say, it's a credible performance. We're quite happy with it, but we are used to fantastic performances, and that's what we hope the next 6 months will be all about.
Let's move away from Star. You have a union background,
yes,
even with Ackermans, which is the store, one of the stores in the crown jewels in Star. You've gone from a union to being chairman of this JSE-listed companies. What do you think of the minimum wage bill and the debate that's going on around that now with that background?
I thought you were going to ask me my life history, but no, minimum wage. The minimum wage is a long-standing debate in the trade union environment, and that's my connection with it, and it's a good thing for people to have a certain minimum wage. The question is, should this be regulated in the law, or should it be a result of bargaining between unions and employers? You will find in most industries which are regulated by collective bargaining agreements or wage determinations and the sort, there are minimum wages in place on a sectoral basis. So what's at stake is, should there be a national minimum? And the difficulty with a national minimum is that you then have to set the lowest, well, you have to set a wage for the lowest paid worker, and I think that's the challenge, why you see it's a difficult debate to make everybody happy, and the unions, who represent much higher paid organized workers who are protected by agreements, would obviously not be comfortable with the regulated amount. But I think it's good for society to try and find a starting point in that. So I'm personally very much in favor of a minimum wage. There is no employee of Star that would be looking at the minimum wage, because they are all paid a proper wage, much higher than that. But it's really good for the average person.
Very briefly, the 20 rand minimum wage, that's that bill, what do you think of that amount?
It is a low amount, that's for sure. I would like to just take the opportunity, though, for 1 minute to say, before I came on, you had something there about the Star executives 500 million bonus, which is actually quite inaccurate. What that was about is that entity, the old Pepkor management, bought shares with their own money, and they borrowed money, and the company in 2011 gave them a guarantee for the money that they borrowed. In December last year, that was worth billions of rands. And when Steinhoff blew up, because their shares, which were Pepkor shares, were converted to Steinhoff shares by mandatory purposes, because Steinhoff wanted 100% when Crystal Visa sold it. Their shares now collapsed in value, and so their loans have become at risk. So we're not giving any money to those individuals. It's just that the long-standing guarantees that were given by the company, we've got to stand good for them.
We'll make a correction on that in our bulletins. Now, growth in private sector credit demand in South Africa slowed to 5.07% in April from a revised 5.98% in March. Expansion in the broadly defined M3 measure of money supply eased slightly to 6.39% from 6.42%.